actually located here in Greensboro, and his IG is a pretty cool name by the name of Earthchild. So I want you guys to put your snaps together and help me welcome Mr. Hart to the stage. Snap, snap, snap. Mr. Hart, feel free to unmute your mic, and if you'd like to introduce something before I play your video, go for it.
What's going on? I'm Hart. Can y'all hear me? What's up? I'm Hart. I didn't really have too much to say about the poem. You pretty much said it all. I'm in Greensboro. I'm a former student at A&T. Yeah, I shot mine pre-recorded, so you can just let it roll whenever.
I'm not hearing sound.
Yeah, me neither. I was just checking the Q&A. I'm not hearing anything.
Sorry, guys, give us 1 second. We're going to get this fixed.
Boy.
I was conditioned to see you as a white man. Wishful thinking told me you were the brother with locks on my grandma's wall. The intellectual in me wants to say you're just an energy present throughout the universe. Honestly, the imagery's redundant, but I think you resonate with me most when you take the shape of a black woman. The most accurate embodiment of strength and mercy, love and forgiveness, pain and creation. Soft enough to provide a tender landing when the world was too afflicting. Strong enough to stand through the daily crucifixions, inaccurate depictions of a mammy or a vixen, the muse of man's fantasies and fictions, an overwhelming truth only understandable through epic parable traditions. Shrouded in a sublime mystique across time, we seek to destroy you, hoping to preserve the divine sight we've seen your fallen angel. Raped and burned at the stake, and here's how he thanks you. Nature of the beast to bite the bosom that raised you. Slice his nose to spite his face, a karmic repeat. While every stone thrown at you rests at his feet. It's the daughter you teach, the mother who taught, the martyr you bleach, the harder you fought, the farther she reached to lead by example. The queen of mankind on the crown made of brambles.
And we're back. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but let's give some wonderful snaps for Hart. That piece was
Dope.
esoteric, but we'll get there. And we are going to keep moving down our lineup. Next, coming to the mic is the beautiful Patrice Dixon. She, her pronouns, is a creative residing in Lenape Land in West Philly. Much of her liberation work is rooted in harmonizing timelines and reclaiming their body through energy transmuting, moving meditation, herbalism, painting, and writing. Since disconnecting with formal education, they've been on a venture of remembering and unifying their creative interests. Right now, Patrice is exploring dialogue between herbs and humans with a communal apothecary, can't say that word well, they initiated with housemates and friends. Listening to that dialogue has led them to a deeper homegoing with their intuitive body and inner child. They enjoy music, playing with the elements, and embodying them in their practices. When they're not talking to plants, they are learning indigenous cosmology or making something with their hands. Although they're offline at the moment, you can find them on Instagram at _KANSTELASHN_ I'm going to try to pronounce that at Constellation. Wrong? I'm trying. Okay. But anyway, let's give them a wonderful warm welcome as they come and uplift us with their word. Patrice, please unmute your mic and go ahead when you're ready.
Hello. And that was Constellation.
Constellation, thank you.
So the piece I'm going to be performing is called Remember Less Trauma and More Turnips. Some days I feel it all. Some days I feel me, her, he, thee. Some days I feel fitting like a skin suit holding all the crevices of my being. Some days I feel unknown, yet my gut gives way to proof of living and seeing. Some days I feel someone washing me with my own tongue, cascading serenity like a waterfall recording discord leaving my feet. And some days I feel myself go from womb to woman, with a thumping that allows the bud of compassion to release, to bring truce. Some days I feel you. Some days taste and sight sound just right, like interminable limbs that branch their own trees, giving rise to cosmic infinities, using my cells to transmute early distortions of undeveloped capacities, activating and remembering original designs of light-giving signatures. The divine sequence can't be counterfeited. And some days I feel my veins forming passageways of insurrection until my skin becomes a sheath stitched by the fervent families within me. Some days I feel restored from the Amazon pouring its rivers in the canals of my thighs, the channels of its tides. The trees never die, they just recast themselves underground and take shape of oceanic plates, creating wells for their roots to live again, for their transmission can't be eradicated. Some days I feel really fluid, hearts unraveled, thoughts to the 10th. I'm no exponent, just a seeker of a time of the world before our Blackness was in opposition. Some days I feel child, knees enlivened, smile widened, ready to explore all of creation. Some days I feel written, I nurture the pen while palms nestle in holographic sand, giving love to the sound of galactic winds. And then one day there's a message to go within and unwind. The sun hits my neck, travels down my back, and I enter a deep ride of cataclysmic ley lines and trines. So fine, they will tear down all borders of contentions, assisting any dispositions of affliction towards the light, like our mother fingertips, always tending, always tracking, always treading the lands more, always asking for gentle sips and consent before they pick. Sacred stewards they are, showing us that the ground protects as its birthright. Every day the key is to not take too much. And on those days, I remember to conjure kinship as an elemental entity. I see it as intentional alchemy, greeting my shadow, loving as devotion, as emptying, learning self-initiation to plant seeds for true healing. I remember to foster synchronous missions and revive ancient wisdoms embedded on the motherland's front doors and prisms. In many ways, we all come to see there can be immortal clarity within a humanized galaxy, a home unsupervised by imperialist eyes. And in this age, many return as water heroes for communal being, a solar system energized, a hearth for Earth's battle. And some say on those days to create less trauma and more turnips. Some say those turnips are so damn sweet, meant to meet the love that exists in the mind's hind seat, the mind's heartbeat, the one that emerges in constant transmutation, feeding itself, freeing itself, even if we're wobbling on ankles that admit to us the need for purgation. And on those days too, I feel our liberation, just as boldly as our attunement to the core of Gaia's wax and wane, just as boldly as our nurturance to ancestral pain. And many days, awake to merge with Earth's floor, so that I feel it all. The transfigurations of her, he, thee, and me, the fitting, the living, and the seeing, holding me in the crevices of my being, the womb forming trees and laughing up the hallways of my thighs, hearts and thoughts forming galactic winds, writing the message to go within. And I remember less trauma and more turnips, for there is plenty for all the worlds and wonders inside me, inside we. Thank you.
Thank you. That was absolutely divine. Thank you. Snaps in the crowd. Snaps, snaps. And after that lovely piece, we are going to head on over to Mr. Douglas Mccullum, our next artist. Mr. Douglas is a poet, martial artist, and graduate of High Point University. He currently serves as an AmeriCorps visa for the Washington Street community. He's been involved with the Poetry Project since his sophomore year of high school and enjoys building bridges between all of the organizations he's blessed enough to work with. So let's snap or clap it up for Mr. Douglas. When you are ready, you may unmute yourself.
Thank you so much. So, while writing an open letter to the boy, following in footsteps of said Black woman, claim, find pride in her prints, discover wonders of worlds you may never know. Notice how near impossible it is to fill her shoes. When she looks back at you, see all the love she's carried. See humanity, and you'll feel no question when you find yourself behind her. No threat in masculinity. See Black women be personified in pain, in anger, in anguish, but you see passion. See roots and do as she does. Borrow from her too. Push societal standards to side. Hush, boy, and study, son. Realize where you come from. Sing like Mahalia. Let the bass of your voice strum strings till heart melt. Show how amazing grace can be. Be bold and beautiful and Black too. Then write like Maya. Tell of beauty in season, of way dawn breaks against snow. How you rise in spite of tide. Let melanated oil drip down your backbone till you found how words can heal scars like cocoa butter and warm milk. Then report like Ida. Be well in way you narrate the narrative. Find comfort in sound your voice makes when it's for masses. Speak for those not spoken for, and you will know what it means to be free. And here goes the same. When you stand like Rosa, you'll know what it means to be planted by good soil. When you love like Coretta, you'll know a blessed thing comes to those who dream. When you preach like Sojourner, you'll know truth in its rawest form. When you calculate like Catherine, you'll rearrange space. And when you lead like Harriet, you'll break chains. See? Guiding lights laid foundations before you. Pride opened doors glued shut. Cross borders ever wide. And so, while writing an open letter to the boy, following in footsteps of said Black woman, my brother, pay attention to direction she now travels. Hear wisdom she has to bestow. Note that it flows through her veins thicker than lips, breasts, and hips could ever muster, my brother. You hear her when she cries out for your support. From carrying weight of worlds, listen, weight of man on her shoulders. Note that is the least you could do. That she deserves all respect you've given to his story for years, because she birthed the nation when she birthed you, my brother. Treat these sisters like queens that they are and approach them as such. Learn to bow out when she dismisses your presence, but also how to be knighted into her kingdom when she welcomes you as well. And when you do that, you'll finally find solace in your manhood. When you do that, you'll find what it means to be an ally. When you do that, you'll find she may not ask for either one from you, my brother. So, by writing an open letter to the boy, following in footsteps of said Black woman, or writing an open letter to me, claim you are protected by her shadows every day. Quit acting like you ain't know.
Phenomenal. Thank you for sharing with us, Douglas. Writing about the Black woman in a kind of sensual way. Yeah. Okay. I also want to give folks, before we move on, I want to give folks a friendly reminder to post any comments or thoughts you have in the Q&A so that we can come back to it at the end, yeah? Okay. And moving on from there, we are going to welcome Miss Kayla Barnes in all of her radiance to the mic. Kayla is currently studying public relations, and her interests include reading, painting, graphic design, public speaking, and modeling. She is also a published author. You can find both of Kayla's books, Indecent by Virtue and Words Left Best Unsaid, on Amazon. We'll also share those links in the Q&A, or at least the titles for you guys. Connect with Kayla on IG at _Kayla Nikki _. Again, that's _KAYLA NICKI _. You know the deal by now. Snap or clap as she comes, unmutes her mic, and fills us with some powerful word. Kayla?
Hey guys, so this piece is called The Eve Gene. This is an ode to she who holds the supreme genetic code, organic and ethereal in the flesh, a real regal node. Warm rays worth all praise, likely to rival the sun. Could turn a Lilith into an orange moon to mimic the light work she's done. With golden hands from the heavens, her rich pigment was hand-spun. Stars dim next to her gilded skin, and from her crown, delicate strands run. I should attest, she'd gracefully fail a paper bag test. Testosterone would rarely roam, estrogen flows beneath the flesh. I'd love to say it, but an understatement to simply profess that she's the best. Look up at the skies through her eyes and all the stars would connect. Call her Mother Zodiac. She makes a killing, causing all this conversation. They'll condemn her hymn, although she's fit to rival crafted constellations. She's the shit. Though most forget, they'll tailor her to be a bitch, to strut in the muse's shoes at night upon a star they wish. Damn right the throne suits her, and I'm not talking about the drip of fit. To say Black Queen would simply be redundant. To bear the weight of piercing hate in the face of relentless judgment. to have provoked passion penned as anger without being blunted, a burden bound to Black bodies, and still the blessing they all wanted. Surviving shivering shoulders, withstanding nurturing notions, the depths of all her waters, worthy of all devotion. Fluorescent fluency flowing, just like golden oceans. Lovely leading light, lusters like poetry in motion. Desired by all, yet loved by none. A spitting image of God can't be outdone. An ode to the godsend who holds cheat codes to grace on earth. The Black woman, the fitting flood to a great unwashed rebirth. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla, for giving us such celestial words about the Black woman. I'm here for it every day. We are going to move forward with yes, we're going to move forward. We have one final lovely performer for you guys. And before we move into her, just a little word on how the rest of the event is going to go. So we're going to have our next performer come, and then I will give a final piece, and then we will move into the second part of dialogue and checking out Amanda Gorman's speech. And we'll just go from there. So at this point, with no further ado, let's welcome to the mic the phenomenal Katherine Malay. Katherine is 25 years old, and she is the founder of Breathe, an organization that uses a 7-step program to help individuals discover healing and truth through poetry, which is really awesome. So let's give her some snaps as she graces us. Katherine, unmute whenever you're ready.
Hi. Swing low, coming for to carry me home. You see, that is a war song, but there are no chariots in this war zone. Only gunshots, bullet wounds, Black bodies splattered across cement, and bloody roads are carrying our brothers home. Caution tape become our skin tone. No question, just trigger and shoot and we're gone. And all you need is a dash of suspicion. And injustice takes ruin to the bodies of our fathers, uncles, brothers, sons. How do I tell my little brother? Look him in his big brown eyes and ask him to understand that he is hated before he even knows what hate is. Feared before he even comprehend fear. Explain to him that his Black skin is enough of an insult already. So no hoodies, head up, head off, no Skittles or headphones, hands outside of pockets, and come straight home. And if in trouble, please don't call 911 because I'm not sure if they'll protect you. So to be on the safe side, trust no one. They want our bodies, skin and bone decomposed into the ground, turn into matter. Police officers will take a target practice to men and Black bodies like they don't even matter. How do I explain to him before society gets there first that he matters? You see, our Black skin is changing over time in their eyes. Now it's like a beware sign, wanted dead, not alive. Forget the for sale sign, slavery's over, we're free now. When they really have us in cages, disguised plantations labeled Section 8 income-based, welfare housing with the catch line of $50 rent, surrounding us by cheap but tasteful foods where they're really feeding you death by the mouth, every spoonful, diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer sticks. And as if this isn't enough, they're killing off our only protection, our men. We are becoming an endangered species. They have gone hunting. They want our Black extinct. Don't tell me I shouldn't be angry, that my hands shouldn't quiver the yearning of steel pointed at ghostly skin. Make them know how it feels to have their family trees to sin. I want to scream and yell to the top of my lungs. This anger should be illegal. Don't tell me I shouldn't be. I never let my pen become too familiar with silence. I always find that some place to speak. We need to find our Black, some place to speak, because when our men out there dropping like rain to the ground, we decide to have moments of silence. Trayvon Martin did die quietly. Michael Brown went down 6 shots too many. Oscar Grant, he had a family. Rodney King was beat brutally. Our ancestors didn't break their backs for this. So why are we letting our mouths fill up empty? Find your voice and speak. Because I will not wait until my brother's name make that list. I will not raise my hands at any type of surrender. I am tired of giving in. I will fight until there is nothing left, and I'll get back up and I'll try again. It is time supposed to take all black skin back where it came from. It was a mistake. Ever trying to make this home, I want to go home and loudly because my anger doesn't come in quiet. My rage knows no silence. Thank you.
I feel like the power behind that, maybe I should clap, maybe not snap. I need to make some noise. Thank you for genuinely and in a very raw, authentic way expressing yourself. And she bought some fire to end it off. So I have one final piece I'll share, and then we'll move forward into the second one. This piece is called Going Through Changes. It's inspired by one of my favorite songs by Tupac Shakur. I'm seeing many changes. Around me is frightened faces. Lack of preparation has plagued the nation. We undergoing an adaptation to the age of social isolation. This new territory for us all to walk. We learn day by day, growing in new ways, navigating a self-journey, trying to find ways to still feel and communicate. It's truly hard, expressing care to those we appreciate, still finding inspiration to create in an age where we separate based on the death rate. And although it seems hell sent, it's real lessons to learn from the evidence. Good health cannot be bought. The rich will not escape the rot. We cannot free ourselves from our thoughts. So perhaps this be a shared pain, and humanity bears the cost. I'm just doing my part, writing melodies of love for those who lost. And that's the way it is. I don't think things will be the same, but I'm seeing many changes. Can a sister find a little peace? I'm in a war zone. Where's the relief? From all the anxiety, from all the grief, from all the fears of dying alone, for all the loved ones who never made it back home, for all the doctors and nurses, the pallbearers and hearses, lifting the people from spells of death and curses. You see, I wonder, do we ever learn from the past? How long will this trial of trauma last? How great a sacrifice will God ask? And will we step up to the plate and honor the task? To keep humans from making the same mistake instead, will we choose to give more than we take? For this is the age of loneliness, a time feeling dark and endless, physical and mental imprisonment affecting all from the old to the children. Though it seems all is falling apart, my friends, this is the time for building with the heart. And that's the way it is. Things will never be the same, but I'm sure they'll be much greater. Thank you. And I want to give, before we move on, I want to give the attendees and the panelists like a huge hearty like round of snaps and claps. Like, thank you to everyone who shared your words and participated and like was vulnerable enough to get out here and say what's real. And we really appreciate that, especially from a group of such melanated individuals, men and women. So next, where we're going is, I'm sure at this time, folks, please put your messages into the Q&A, start filling that up, like start putting your comments, any questions you have for any performers, go ahead and start thinking about that and putting that into play. I'm gonna give you guys a few moments to do that. And while doing so, we're gonna play the Amanda Gorman inaugural poem. Many of you may have seen it, many of you, some may not, but it did inspire a lot for this event this year. And it was important that we had a person of color, a young person of color, that was able to express themselves on such a large platform. So let's give a little bit of respect and watch her performance, and then we'll come back and we'll get into this conversation. Okay. Thank you also for being patient with us while we've been figuring out how to start and stop and all of these things. Just give me 1 second.
Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace. And the norms and notions of what just is, isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe?
I'm gonna stop it right there because many people may have seen it, but I think it left off on a good question for us to kind of jump into convo about, for us to think about, like, how, when I write, I think about, you know, how I'm dealing and navigating catastrophe, how I'm dealing with honestly just being a human being and how I'm presented in the world. So I just feel that's a good point where we can stop and kind of have some thought and head into our Q&As. You guys got some comments that I'm gonna read out and ask questions as well. A lot of congratulations from folks. One speaker, one lady named Tracy, she's asking you guys, are any of the other speakers planning to publish their works? follow in Kayla's footsteps, maybe. Kayla, you can also share about, what it is like as an artist, what inspired you to publish. Others, if you're in that process, feel free to respond as you will.
I got inspired to publish because actually my first book was more of journal entries, and I was going through like a really hard time battling mental health. I was diagnosed with panic disorder when I was in about 7th grade, and I just tried to keep it to myself for a really long time until that was no longer a possibility for me. So dealing with that, a lot of times I felt really alone. So the only thing I really could do was write. And I got to a point where I came out of this really dark depression when I was at school, lost a bunch of friends that I had had. And I just know that I wasn't the only person that was feeling that lonely. And a lot of songs or books that I read kind of cradled me through that time. So who was I to not be one of those people for someone else, to kind of cradle them through a time where they felt lonely, that they can understand that, they weren't alone.
So more definitely a expression is coping a lot for you and just navigating your own feelings. So I can understand. Anyone else want to jump in on that question? Hart, I see you.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't necessarily see myself publishing in written form. I tend to express myself more on the music tip, but as far as poetry goes, it feels like a way for me to get out the emotions live and direct. There's not you don't necessarily have to think of all the constraints of music where you have to put it in verses and things of the sort. You can kind of get it out however it comes out, and that's why when I have something that I just need to get out urgently or whatever, I kind of use poetry for that more so. So it's more journalistic or like diary entries.
Journalistic and diary entries could be great for collections in the future, very small pieces that you have.
That's true. Possibility.
Always possible. Did anyone else want to? You guys can unmute your mic at will if you want to comment. If not, anyone else? If not, let's see what other questions we have coming. Hart Brandy is saying, love the purple background, reminded me of royalty. Interesting Mammy Vixen, quote, can you elaborate on this fantastic work of art, sir?
Oh yeah, what's the line? Inaccurate depictions of a mammy or a vixen. I feel like those are two of the strongest stereotypes of Black women. She's either just a housewife or not necessarily a housewife, taking care of children and taking care of the house, or she's a vixen, like a sexual object. There's no room in society for women to, really be their own person, it feels like. They're always having their identities attached to like a man as a sidekick type deal, as his support. So I feel like that line was basically me trying to just addressing that more than anything.
Okay. Hopefully that gave her some answers. Snaps from Marlis, they say you were all amazing. Thank you for sharing. More amazing compliments. You guys got a lot of compliments on this thing. From Geneva, she says, amazing, you all gave me chills. Pat says, well, this is for us and as well, but this will hopefully be a link that we can send later. Folks are asking, can they rewatch it and see it again? And if our tech team is doing well, hopefully so. Brandy is talking to Patrice. She's saying, memorable word painting. I love the washing me with my own tongue. This is a reminder for me to speak life and positivity at all times. When I don't, understanding I need to fix it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that's something that like really inspired this poem for me to use it as a tool of affirmation. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Patrice, while I have you there, I would say your piece was very riveting. So I would say for a lot of people, it's such a emotional ride. It incites a lot of emotions, thoughts, and that I'm sure you can speak more on that. Was it intentional? Did you have any specific emotions you were trying to incite in people, or thoughts, or vibrations?
These are just all the emotions inside me. And me just trying to figure out how to put it into words. Right now I'm in a period of like really processing a lot of childhood trauma and trying to transmute a lot of that trauma into affirmation and into something that feels tangible, and that feels like it can like restore my connection with myself and with nature. So I've been trying to formulate a lot of my writing around that, just getting more connected to nature and to myself.
Thank you for sharing. That reminded me a lot of what Kayla was saying as well, with her work on just really having to work on self-discovery and self-healing. And I'm sure I've heard a lot of that in Katherine's as well. Katherine actually reminded me of Solange in a strange way, like straight up, you got a lot to be mad about. And you are allowed to express that. And poetry is a perfect outlet for that. So, let me see, we got a lot scrolling. Let me see. Douglas, you got some questions coming up for you. We'll get there. Marlis says, snaps, all of y'all were amazing. Thank you so much. Let me see, Katherine, you have some questions coming up as well. Okay, Geneva says, I have a couple questions, Douglas. What inspired you to write your poem?
So I think, when you have, first of all, we'll start with one of the baseline things, right? I think I was asked to do something quite similar to this, but I hadn't had anything that spoke directly towards, the Black woman and that experience. So for me, I wanted to do so in a way that was respectful, in a way that wasn't necessarily gentrifying the story, but also telling my own, and calling myself out in the midst of all of that stuff. And so growing up, in the Black church, growing up in a Black household, growing up around, the men that I grew up around, often you're taught that, the woman is supposed to be subservient, right? So flipping that on its head and saying, so what about all the things that I've learned from the Black women around me, and not just taking that from the trauma that they've experienced, but also from the light and the life that they've given in many ways than one, right? And so that was pretty much the way that I wanted to write that poem, and the way that piece came about. I think, hopefully, it was a different narrative for that, right? We get a lot of, oh, well, she's strong because she went through this. Well, what if she's strong just because she is? And what if she's strong just because she taught me? Or what if she doesn't want to be strong today? And where's the strength in that? So those were the questions that I kind of asked myself when I was writing it. And that's what came from it. So thank you for asking that question. I appreciate it.
Sounds like you're very interested in the nuances of femininity. Not one single narrative, but, or not a traditional narrative, but kind of a radical one with agency. So I can dig that.
I appreciate it.
Let's see, what do we have next? Oh, the questions are moving fast. Hearts, we're going to come back for that one. Douglas, while you're here, Brandy says, Douglas, I admire your confidence and courage, my favorite. Words can heal scars like cocoa butter and warm milk. Can you share what that phrase means to you? Thank you.
You know, it being, you know what cocoa butter and warm milk can do for us and our skin and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, now just making sure that there is this feeling, this comfort that comes not only with, putting it on your skin, but also smelling it. So that aroma, that you take in whenever you hug your auntie or your mama or whomever, and also whenever she's giving you something that is like warm milk or is like cocoa butter, and she's telling you to get ready for your day and giving you those affirmations before you walk out the house. But I think that those are all things that connotate to me with those two items, and so being able to heal those scars in that way, kind of set the tone for that line at least.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Douglas. Kayla, Brandy says, you reminded me of my favorite artist, Jill Scott, living our life like it's golden. Your references of golden were extraordinary. What led you to highlight that word? Katherine, we have some coming up for you.
So I had on a purple shirt one time, and I really hate the color purple on my skin. And someone told me that with the purple against my skin, I look golden, and that I reminded them of the Lakers. And it really had me like reassess like some of the pictures that I had. And I'm like, wow, I always got told that I look caramel. Like that's just the description they gave me. And I'm like, I do like look golden. And then I have a friend whose skin is chocolate and a friend whose skin looks like cocoa powder. And I'm like, wow, you guys are golden too. Like even the winter lights hitting you and you just look like shimmering gold. I just feel like anytime Black people are in the sun, we look like gold.
I love that. Black gold, baby. I love that. Okay. And I love that for you as well, that you're seeing yourself shining. All right. Katherine, Brandy says, I absolutely loved your passion. You truly speak as if you've lived many, many, many years. I'm fully awakened by your phrase, death by the mouth of food, ... diabetes. Diabetes affects our community at an alarming rate. Thank you for creatively getting my attention to make better decisions. You want to?
Thank you. Yeah. There's a lot of things that are, I feel like systematic. And I think that one part kind of touches on that, how in predominantly Black communities, the things that are put around us, we don't really have access to healthy foods, to grocery stores. Most of the time it's like small convenience stores or gas stations, and the things that you get, are very microwavable and quick, full of salt, sugars, and not a lot of people in the Black community or in those communities are real educated on healthy eating, and then that contributes to high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and then a lot of that is common in the Black community, but it's also systematic too, just because that's all that's given to us in the areas where the majority of us live. So
I stay there, Katherine. I got a few more questions. Where they keep going. Sorry. While I'm finding that, actually, oh wait, here it is. Tanaya asked you, Katherine, when did you start writing poetry, and when did you start publicly sharing your poetry?
I started writing in fifth grade. I only laugh because it's a hilarious story. I wrote the first poem in fifth grade, and my grandma bashed it and was like, "Why is she writing this?" She called my aunt like it was an intervention. I never wrote again for like a year until sixth grade, and I probably started performing my sophomore year of high school. in an organization, some guy came to our school and started talking about speaking out poetry, and I never really spoke it out or performed or anything like that. So my sophomore year of high school, I started performing, and after that I was competing, and then I started teaching, and then I created my own business and own workshops. So yeah, it's kind of how it started for me and where it's at now.
Okay. I actually had a question. What exactly inspired the piece that you shared today?
I was in college, 2014. And Mike, that was during Mike Brown, I Can't Breathe. I have horrific asthma. So I related to that very personally, because I know what it feels like to not be able to breathe. And I keep doing that poem because sadly it's still relevant and it still applies even, all these years later. So that's kind of where it started and why it's still being said.
Yeah, it is unfortunate that it's still relevant in a way, but
Yeah.
As long as it's relevant, keep spitting it. That's what I say. As long as it's relevant, keep saying it.
Most definitely.
I like your resilience, how because I think maybe the other panelists can relate as well, but staying motivated and having the energy to even express yourself sometimes when you exist when just your existence is violated all of the time. At times I don't want to write. I don't write. I'm unmotivated and uninspired to write anything sometimes. And, I think like many of you said, coping, honestly, through expression is very important, even if it's, whether it comes out catty or all prosed and perfect or just random and emotional. It's the fact of getting it all out and articulating yourself. And I appreciate all of you for that. Let me see, what else do we have? Kamora says, thank you all very much for your powerful and beautiful words. Let me see, I'm trying to cover. Pat Livington says, Amanda Gorman we'll get to Amanda Gorman, is amazing. Yes, we'll get there for sure. Let me see, any other questions? Amazing, y'all gave me chills. A lot of snaps. Let me see who else has particular questions. Douglas, let me see. Kayla, I've asked those. Hart, I had a question for you. Your silhouette, like I told you before, was pretty awesome. What inspired that? What inspired that creative angle, I guess?
Well, the whole thing about it, with the silhouette in particular, it was kind of, I was writing about the Black woman, or the muse of the Black woman and the energy. I was trying to let that carry me. So I kind of wanted the subject to be less on me. So I used the silhouette kind of as a way to just focus on what I was talking about more than anything else. I wanted to allow the topic of Black womanhood to be without me having to, be doing a whole bunch of stuff and being worried about how I look. So I chose that's why I chose the silhouette. And I forget the name, but the lady who asked the question earlier about the purple kind of hit the nail on the head as far as purple in regards to royalty and things like that. And I chose to use the more retro film style of editing because I've had this old saying that keeps coming up in my life lately of the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I feel like in regards to a lot of the issues and just, most of the stuff we talked about tonight, and as far as everybody goes with their poems, it was like, these are questions and concerns and things that we've been talking about for years and years and years. And it kind of, as times goes on and things change, things translate to the times, but that doesn't, and we behave as if they've been healed, but they've kind of just been swept under the rug, and we end up dealing with them in different ways. So that was kind of why I shot that in that way.
Thank you, Hart. Moving on, Kayla. Someone asked, can you tell us about a Black woman that inspires your poetry? And then I have another question for everyone after that. We'll start there. Kayla?
A Black woman that inspires my poetry would have to be my grandmother. She passed recently, but she comes up a lot in my book when I'm just kind of recounting my relationship to her. And I remember talking to my sister one day, and we were telling each other these stories about just how she was as a person. And she had to be one of the most uncompromising beings that I ever met, but uncompromising in a good way, even down to if she's getting a service or getting food from somewhere, she expects it to be how she acts, like expects to be treated a certain way because she is getting a service and things like that. She had such grace about her, especially toward the end, that was, I can't think of a word for it, but it was kind of remarkable the amount of grace that she had toward the end. And she told me one day, before she passed, like the week that she did, she just had this intimate conversation with me and was just like, you're special and you could be a great writer one day if you want to. And it was just so random. And I was just like, okay. And I hadn't think about like publishing my work probably until after that conversation, but she is one of the Black women who inspires a lot of my work.
Thank you. Just to add to that, your grandmother, actually all of our grandparents and ancestors, they're very important for us to build those relationships with before they're not here, because they're really the closest bridge that we have to those stories that weren't told to us, those stories that were unknown. And much of that shapes who we are. And it's imprinted on us and our lives, whether we know it or not. So I'm happy to hear that the person that has inspired you is someone personally close to you, someone that could, have an impact on how you're actually living. And that's nice. No shade to, mentors and others who are just, well-published authors and things, but it's nice to have people who are close to you, direct ancestors, or, communal folks that you get along with. Hart, you got something to say, or are you moving around? Okay, all right, let me see. Patrice, I have a question for you. Where did it go? I had a question for you about your current explorations of, hold on, I had wrote it down. This is my question for you. Tell us a little bit more about your experience in your, I guess, with your friends and family, communal, I can't say that word, apothecary.
Yeah.
Tell us about that journey you're on, because it's very unique and it sounds very profound.
Yeah, so right now I live with about 5 other housemates. And we've been on this journey of healing since like the pandemic started. And within that, we've just had so many conversations about like different diseases and patterns that have been showing up in our families and in ourselves. And for me, especially, I've spent a lot of my time caring for my aunt, and just seeing her have to deal with a lot of like her physical health issues and her mental health issues. And so I've always been interested in how plants and herbs can heal us. And so we're just taking this venture as like a collective to study together, to learn together, to know more, and then kind of provide more information around that to the community. and we're only like maybe 3-4 months in. So we're just taking it really slow and just using it as a time to like even deepen our connection with ourselves.
Do you find that translating in your poetry a lot?
Oh yeah, yeah. Trying to talk more about that healing for me, and trying to use my voice more and learn how to articulate myself. So my connection to hers and healing is something that I want to kind of transcribe into my poetry and into my painting.
Thank you for sharing that. Might have inspired some other folks out there to start journeying and talking to plants. I love it. Nodia says beautiful to all of you guys, and thanks for sharing. The men, I just have a question. A few others shared as well. Writing and having to think about the plight of Black women, think about the experiences of Black women throughout your life, and how did that play out for you guys when writing? Your experiences with women, your understanding of femininity. Was it difficult to really think and express the complexities of a Black woman?
I would say it definitely was. Like when I first saw the theme, I was a little intimidated because, I've been writing for a long time, but it's never something that I went at from a direct angle. And I feel like the key to it was just really digging deep and finding that empathy because, you know, every man has been around women his whole life in one form or another, whether it be your mother, your auntie, your girlfriends, whoever. Women are all around us, they're the backbone of our society. So just looking at the situations that I've seen women in my family in, women that I was friends with in, and just kind of really taking and just conversations that I've had with women and really, really like zeroing in on the perspective they're giving me and learning to listen to understand rather than to give whatever opinion I had back in the first place was key for me. And just, understanding y'all's plight as far as, everything goes. So that was kind of how I took at it.
Douglas, you want to comment?
Absolutely. No, so I think, first of all, Hart, I appreciate, that perspective as far as listening and listening to understand. I think that's something that, you know, especially as a man, we need to continue to work on. So for me, I think right now, currently, and even when I was writing this piece, so I've been in this season of like self-reflection, right? And I think what the reason I wrote the piece as like an open letter to myself was to act on that self-reflection and to be like, okay, well, what have you done wrong? What can you do better? What have you done well? What do you see yourself being 5-10 years from now in regards to the women in your life? And so writing, for me is always I write a lot of those kind of poems, right? To look at myself in the mirror and call myself out. And so, trying to understand womanhood and femininity and all those things, it becomes an interesting task when you are doing that in a lens of um, self-reflection, and you are doing that in a lens of, oh, okay, well, you probably dropped the ball here, but what can you improve on? And so, telling that story for me was important so that I didn't, take anything that wasn't supposed to be mine, because I don't know what it is to be a woman, right? I don't know what it is to identify as that, but what I do know is that there are ample opportunities to learn, and there are ample opportunities to sit down and listen, like Hart said. And so, you know, that was the case for me, was to sit myself down and be like, hey man, shut up and just pay attention, watch and learn. So
And also, I feel like I was very worried about just avoiding the pitfalls when you look at the cliches when you hear men
Right.
talking about black women, where, you know, a lot of times it just starts off as comparing y'all to food or something, where people, somebody's talking about, you know, chocolate this and
Chocolate truffle.
caramel that all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted it to definitely be a divine type of thing as well. And yeah.
Yeah. That, yeah, I mean, I guess that takes critical thinking in itself, you know, that whole talk about, you know, intentionally not objectifying women, you know, and seeing that rich diversity in who they are and how they like to be represented, or how they choose to represent themselves, you know. So
Right.
thank you too, to being open-minded and vulnerable as our men performers.
thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. For all the poets, I wanted to speak slightly in relation to Amanda Gorman. And you all are performers, and in your own way could understand, I guess, the importance of some of the things she said. So I'm curious as to your own thoughts, to each of you thoughts on that. As a poet, the content, as a poet, what do you feel really being able to express any experience of Black people on such a large platform? I mean, what do you think? Is it helpful? Is it inspirational? Would you change things? Did you appreciate the content? Did you not? I've heard mixed reviews from folks. So tell me your thoughts as artists. This was a big moment, and you know, she's went viral, and this is good for us. But now, you know, poets we're in there. So so what? Tell me your thoughts.
I really did appreciate the content. However, it's more so about her bravery in doing it, because I think like moments like that can really be nerve-wracking, and I think she understood that she wasn't just doing it for her.
Yes.
I've heard before that you can't be what you don't see, or it's hard to be what you don't see. And think about how many young Black children, young Black girls don't see women poets, like especially at her age, doing what she's doing.
Mhm.
It kind of feels like you're in this world driving blind. But when you have someone to look up to, even if it's just that one moment, it really can change a whole perspective for you, open up a whole new world you didn't even think that you would even be welcome in. So
Thank you. I agree with that. The strength that it's going to take to get up there and honestly speak about the issues that Black people are facing in a way that's still professional and articulate, I think is challenging. And, you know, in a world where we're so divided right now, where, let's be real, you know, hate and violence is a real thing that we're facing. It does take a lot. It takes a lot to get up there in a divided nation and speak so openly about the issues that our country is facing, for sure. So thank you. We're gonna go with Douglas, and we got about 8 minutes left, so we're just gonna go from each person and then have a little wrap up. Douglas, you wanna add?
So regarding Amanda, or
Female poets, Amanda, what you felt it meant for that, any of that, whatever.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, so I think you know, in the spirit of sitting down and listening, right? I think we are in a time where people have no choice but to pay attention, right? And I do think that's why you know, there's a platform for us as poets, as you know, artists and creatives. You know, from when people were marching in the streets and coming up with chants, to the paintings that you saw on the side of downtown Greensboro on buildings, to you know, now spoken word artists standing up on stages or doing Zoom meetings and you know, giving of ourselves. I think, I always thought that we were often kept in the shadows, right, and hidden on the shelf. And so now, with all of this going on, people have started to clean out their closets. And when you do that, you start taking stuff off of the shelf. You're like, oh, what is this? What is this thing in which we can use? How do we give this message? Who is this person? And so when you see people like Amanda, who has, had her footprint in regards to poetry and art for a while, but, have that kind of a platform, it to me seems as if, it was somebody taking this art off of the shelf and saying, well, let's see what this can do. And she took full advantage of that. I think, like you said, there was, she understood the importance and the weight of the moment. And she brought a lot of dignity to that. I appreciate, the opportunity that it was for her and for our community as well.
Thank you. Patrice, you want to add?
I just think it's important for us to constantly see someone affirming our existence, and being able to do that in front of a whole audience of people who don't really know what the Black experience is like, or sometimes they need a more clear vision of what that's like. That's really important for that to be told and for it to be seen. So a lot of what she said resonated.
Same. Representation is key, for sure. Katherine, you want to add?
It's pretty much the same thing. I just think it was very important to see somebody who looks like me, and not just in skin color, but in age, in the hair, in poetry. She definitely poeted it up there, and it was just dope to see. And I teach workshops and poetry workshops to younger folks, and sometimes it gets really hard when you're in the school system trying to teach kids about this part of poetry, not the literacy part that you're taught in school, that kind of just ruins it all for kids. When you go in and show them like spoken word and slam poetry, and they see you, but I think watching on that platform, it does go places, and it can teach us this, but it could take me somewhere. Like when you say your voice matters, hers matter, and it was heard all over the world. And that I just think it reiterated what I teach, and I thought that was really dope.
Same, absolutely. That affirmation was everything. It was. And for other people who had never even, I'm not going to say it legitimized it, but it did, I feel, make poets a lot more credible for people who thought this is just a skill that they practice, but it doesn't, what is the real significance and influence of this? I thought it was nice of someone to be on such a large platform showing why writing and creative expression is so important. So thank you for sharing that. Guys, are we breaking up? Are we clear? We're clear? Okay. Hart, did you add? You started off, didn't you, or no?
Yeah, I obviously agree with everyone in terms of the importance of just the representation, and like Tree said, having constant affirmations of our existence when we in such a hostile environment, because a lot of people talk about our struggle and how we should go about it, how we're supposed to defend ourselves, and forget that it's not like we're not facing a passive resistance at all. There's been several instances throughout our history where in the most direct ways, say it possible, war has been waged on our existence. So to be in the center of that world, this space that we exist in, and speak our truth out there for us, I feel like is very, monumentally important, especially for the kids to see and to know that you can speak your truth wherever you are.
Absolutely, wherever you are. Katherine, we had a couple people saying they really related to what you said and they appreciated your comments.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, everyone, we are coming up on 6:30. It's really dark. I know you can't probably even see me anymore. But I want to thank all of you, Kayla, Hart, Patrice, Douglas, and Katherine, Kalia on the tech end, as well as all of our attendees out there. I want to thank you on behalf of AADS for joining us, participating, like bringing your creative expressions and yourselves here. Like, you're valued, each of you, and we're so thankful to have you. And this was our first virtual case, and I think we made it a success, although I couldn't work the Zoom a couple times. So we made it a success, and it couldn't have been done without all of you. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your work. Attendees, thank you.